We are your indie author
ally. It's a nice way to remember it, although I did meet some members last night who said they always say Ali. So it is said many ways, but it's a great organization, any way it's said, and it's 3 years old. It was actually created here, well, almost here, at the London Book Fair 3 years ago, and in fact, you were on site at the time this happened, right? Wasn't it the first year of the Author Lounge?
I think it was the first year of the Author Lounge, yeah. But that was a coincidence, I think. We were up in, some of the people who are here today were there then, and we were up in the old press room in the annex at the back of a cabin kind of thing. And, yeah.
Somewhere out behind Earl's Court, you see. Yeah, no, it's kind of amazing that the group has grown and has thrived and has done such a job, and it's been through a lot of hard work, a great deal of it Orna Ross's. And what I want to start, yes. Absolutely. What I want to start by asking you, Orna, is if you could single out one major accomplishment that you feel sort of overshadows everything else, what would it be? Is it possible to think of just one accomplishment as the big one?
I think it's what people were talking about earlier, indies supporting indies.
Uh-huh.
I've worked in loads, like a lot of people in the room. When you're creative, you do lots of day jobs. A lot of us did, and I've worked in so many different industries, and I have never seen the level of cooperation that I've seen in this arena. So I think everybody in this room, actually, they can't even say ally right. You know, that's indies for you. They won't do it one way. So everybody in this room is, by definition, indie-minded, indie-spirited, and, you know, quite opinionated, probably, and likes to do things their own way, yet can come together with people who are very different, writing in completely different genre and completely different ways about completely different things, and cooperate in a way that is mutually beneficial. And that, for me, is just every day, that's what makes the job a pleasure.
Yeah, Dan Holloway's been telling me for years about the diversity in the community, and that goes for pronunciation as well. But what I want to know as a journalist, because, you know, all of us in journalism, we follow the news. We don't lead the news, and so we're always a little bit behind. We don't like to say that very often, but we are. Was this apparent from the beginning? Was that cooperative spirit right there, or is this something that indies have learned together?
I think it comes, do you know what it reminds me of? I spent 10 years on the barricades in Ireland trying to get reproductive rights for women, and it reminds me of that. It's like it's kind of like feminism in those days. It's because there's a slight sense of being beleaguered, and you know, that it's not right, it's not just, it doesn't figure, it doesn't configure, it doesn't make sense. I think that binds the community. I think that's what does it.
And is it important to keep that spirit there, or can it actually wane if you're not careful? Can you lose track of that togetherness, that union?
Oh, I think you can't start trying to shepherd it. It's organic, it's there or it's not.
Right.
It probably won't last forever, maybe, I don't know.
Right.
But it's certainly there at the moment. It's tangible. It's the one thing that everybody talks about. Publishers talk about it, the agents talk about it, the academic researchers talk about it, and we talk about it, and we turn to it, and we rely on it. So,
in 3 years with Ali, Ally, you see my pronunciation.
He's getting there.
Yeah, I'm slowly. In 3 years with the organization, how international has it become? Because we still think of it mostly as a UK organization.
Yeah, it's not a UK organisation. That's
right.
Another perception that kind of I've
that
heard.
We need to get past.
Yeah, well, I've heard also it tends to be people in the US who define it as a UK organisation. So it has almost from the beginning been about 1/3 UK, 1/3 US, and one third everywhere else.
Really, from the beginning, it was that
pretty
that
much. Yeah. Now
that's interesting.
It goes up and down a bit, but you know that sort of divide hasn't changed really all that much. The UK dimension, just because our office is based here, tends to be more, you know, we just know people, we've met them in reality, but it doesn't make that much difference this year, and this event today is part of Indie Recon. Indie Recon was started by two US indies, Shelley Wells, who writes as S.R. Johannes, and Ali Cross, and, you know, we've had tweets and responses and people tuning in from all over the world, and we continue to do that. This year, we're working on a Going Global campaign, which actually quite closely with Ingram on that in terms of getting, spreading much, much more, because I think there is real advantages in the people who are already established, people in the US it was, now in the UK as well, reaching into new territories, and indies there in every territory are kind of picking up quicker because there's already more information available, and I really think that's something to be encouraged and promoted.
And the Going Global campaign puts basically a community up in each area, doesn't it?
Yeah, we have ambassadors in those areas, and they begin to reach out and do the kind of work that's happening and link back to members here and in the US and in the places that are more established, and draw on them to help. So we have, she may have left now, but we have somebody from the New South Wales, Australia, the Writers' Centre here today to see how we're doing things, to kind of take it away. We had a US woman came up and said, we need to do it this way, and she's kind of going back to talk to her people about it. So there's a million ways to do this, but the heart of it will be that cohesion between writers working together for each other. That's how I see it. Yeah.
One of the ways I can congratulate you is that you've become a resource for the rest of the world about indie publishing and about authors in general, because of course there is more and more mix starting to occur between traditionally publishing and independently publishing authors. But for example, in the United States, we're doing a conference in October called Novelists Inc., and I'll be bringing Orna over to talk to us about what is available from this organization and what it means to our backlisting authors now who are trying to learn how to go international with their books, because it's very difficult for them to get offshore. And what Orna can tell us, particularly with Going Global and other experiences that this organization has encountered and already handled, will be hugely helpful to some 600 people who will be at that particular event. And so it's a resource to the rest of us as well as to the membership itself. It's interesting that it's starting to face both the world and the authors, a dual-facing organization. Speaking of campaigns, though, there are others that are very significant, like the Ethical Author campaign that you announced during our Future Book Conference from the bookseller last year. Tell us some of those. Mention a couple of them, and which one is closest to your heart? Is there one you can say is really yours?
Well, Ethical Author was interesting because it arose out of people feeling that it should be done, and after much kind of thinking about it, it was done, and I certainly, Porter, I don't know my own name at this stage, never mind how many by the names of our campaigns after 3 days at London Book Fair. And so there's Opening Up. Yes, I think this is my favourite campaign. This book is based on the one you were given the free copy of today. It's called Opening Up to Indie Authors, and it is a sort of partly a plea to the literary infrastructure, I suppose you call it. I was going to say establishment, but I don't think that's the right word for writing, the writing world.
I like that, infrastructure. That's a good word.
The infrastructure that's already there, that's really important, that deals with writers and readers and books and cares about literary matters. How do we actually get them to embrace self-publishing in a way that works for them, and how do we as self-publishers help them to do that? So Dan,
such as awards programs, right?
Such as awards programs, events, festivals, bookstores, libraries, essentially anywhere where books are brought to readers.
Right.
How can self-publishers be there also? Because the infrastructure is, of course, set up around publishing, not around self-publishing. And so I look forward to the day when we're all authors and we're not. I hate that word hybrid, and I don't like the word traditional publishing, which seems to imply it's over, because it so isn't. It will always be there. Trade publishers are a service for authors. So are paid services a service for authors. And what defines, a lot of authors don't want to self-publish. They actually want to be cared for and minded. And that to me is what an indie is. An indie author, there are loads of them in the room here, have published with trade publishers before, will do again, self-publish and so on. That's just indie. That's not hybrid. That's just indie-minded author.
Right. It's in fact a mindset that can be picked up even by the traditionalists, and they can go much farther by being entrepreneurial about what they're doing with their work.
we often have Stephen from Faber is an example. I always say he's indie. You know, he's an indie-minded person, and there are lots of people working in trade. Toby Mundy, who works with us now to try and get subsidiary rights sold for our members. Toby is indie-minded.
That's right.
Yeah, so it is a state of mind more than it is anything else.
It is, and I think the more we say that and are clear about it, the more it frees up all of our authors to come in this direction and to join into the community and not feel that it's something for someone who's in one posture or another. The embrace that I'm starting to see as a journalist is very encouraging, because for a while we thought we saw so much animosity. And that needs to move away, of course, so that everybody can support each other. In the end, I think we'll get a more supportive community overall. Some more campaigns, though. There's the one for, today that Debbie was telling us about with beers.
Yes,
Yeah.
and this is kind of part of that, but just developing it more, because we actually think bookstores, it's a state of crisis almost, I would say, and the model is broken. It's a bit broken, and it's not very amenable to writers. There are far more writers than there's room in bookstores for their work. And so how do you actually get those two to work together? So yeah, that's an upcoming campaign that will be launched in autumn. So a lot of our campaigns arise because there's a perceived need, and sometimes people approach us and say, you know, that should happen, or the team says, you know, we really should do something about such and such. And very often what we're doing is simply a matter of putting it out there.
Right.
And getting people to think about it and talk about it and discuss it, and, you know, Porter Anderson to pick up on it and tweet about it, and that's very often what we're trying to do. So it's not, you know, we've limited resources, we're a non-profit, we couldn't manage without the members and what they bring, and that's...
And many of them are here today with us. Tell us a little about the structure. How many members are there at this point?
It depends on how you define member.
Diversity.
So yeah, we have members at lots of different levels. But
Right,
if you take
right.
everybody together, we've got about 25,000 people who are feeding into the
That's
organisation.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And how much of an infrastructure, going back to that word, is there at the center running Ali? What is the structure of
Well,
that?
we're all everybody who's involved is also a writer.
Right.
So nobody is a full-time employee as
Right.
such.
Right.
So everybody is doing something else except me and Philip Lynch, who are the core people. And then there's Debbie, of course, who runs the self-publishing advice blog, which is actually, as part of what we're talking about here, the evolution of indie is going to be turning into the author advice blog.
Nice.
It will still focus very much on self-publishing, but will carry all sorts of advice for all authors, really, because we think of it now as authors who self-publish rather than self-publishing authors, like the self-publishing defines you.
That's a nice way to say it.
And then there's Jay, who handles our social media, and Karen in South Africa, and there are just Yen does some work for us, Neris in Germany. There's people all over kind of feeding in, and sometimes, like in the last week, there's just so much activity, and then other times it scales down.
Yeah, it goes with the cycles with the rest of the community. For that
I'd like
matter.
on that, mention our volunteers. I'd like to particularly mention David Penny over there in the corner, who made the recon happen from our side of the water. Ali and Shelley and also Miral Sitar were working very hard on the US side, but without David, absolutely none of it would have happened. He ran the website, essentially. So thank you, David.
And looking back 3 years ago, when you started the organization, I'm going to be careful about that, and you were at Earl's Court and you declared the thing open and alive and happening, what would you have done differently if you knew then what you know now?
Nothing, really.
That's great.
I make a mess of it all the time. I mean, making it up as we go along completely. It is completely organic, creative kind of. So you can't, what you do is you make the mistake, and you know, and then that's part of the fabric, isn't it? It's like writing a book. It's all the stuff that goes into the bin that makes it what it is, you know. And I think writing a book actually is a brilliant way to become brave enough to do something like start an organization like this,
Right.
And to know how to kind of not let it maybe, you know, it's the resilience thing that Mark was talking about. You know, so yeah, things go wrong. But as I was saying this morning when we were kicking off, we're not event organisers. We're writers, and we're all members here, and we're all friends, and we all help each other. So there's never anything too bad. And if things go terribly wrong, it usually adds up to a blog post doesn't go out on the internet that day, or something. You know, none of us it's not brain surgery.
No lives are lost.
No,
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is good. That's pretty good. And what would be, I think the last question I have is, what would be the biggest goal you have in mind now for the organization? If it could take a step immediately, what would it be?
I have something I want to do, and that is I want to make self-publishing available, and really available and comfortable for people whose voices are not heard. So I think what we've done is those of us who are kind of brave enough and have the resources and the support in some way are able now to use these tools and get out there. But if it doesn't transform what writing gets out there, then it just becomes it's just same old commercially driven stuff. The fact that anybody can self-publish doesn't actually mean that anybody can self-publish. Support is needed in all sorts of ways. And that's what I'd like to, you know, if Ally grows, to have membership that allows that sort of financial ability, then that's what I'd like to do. So I'd like, you know, people that we can think of, I'd hate the term, but marginalised, who I want to hear what they have to say. I really, truly do, and it's not easy to hear that. And I think self-publishing is a way that could happen, especially now that we know how to reach an audience and how to reach a readership and how to open ears. Then, if we don't actually use these tools to truly make change, then it's just same old, same old.
Well, this could be the most exciting chapter yet if you're actually able not only to make what's here enabled, but to start bringing forward new work. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
I'd love that.
And to raise it up. Good. Congratulations. Congratulations to all of you. I think this is a great day, and I think it's a great 3 years that we're talking about here with Orna. Great stuff. Thanks.